All right, so welcome everyone. I am Michelle Walker, President of Lawful America, and we do this on usually Friday nights with Chief Tomahawk, and he is one of my guys at the round table for Lawful America, and he has worked in law enforcement, and he served as a federal marshal under Washington, D.C., law enforcement for 30 years, and a lot of amazing things. He has as well served as the over the security with the Cherokee Nation. And the fun fact and the most amazing thing he's done so far is be able to work with me at Lawful America. Right, Chief?
I'm working on it.
You're working on it?
I'm trying to get
no,
staircase and get on the elevator.
I know. No, I think if it was your way, you would have me in a cannon and you would shoot me across the world if it was your way. That would be your way. But he has a great honor. He's helped in all of our assemblies. And so this is a Q&A, and this is like a laid back environment where we're going to start some things that we want to talk about, but it's a relaxed environment. Just we want to have a fun time and an educational time. And the Chief always says that if you don't ask, right, Chief?
You can't get an answer.
That's right.
Nothing you don't want to hear the truth to.
I knew that when I first met the Chief, within like a week, I think he sent me that email. That's all it said. If you don't ask, you can't get the answer. And I was like, I know what I'm dealing with now. And it's been trouble ever since. And so, and no, it's a great honor. And he is one of my dear friends. So we appreciate him doing this. And then tonight as well, we have Noble with us. And Noble as well serves on my round table with Lawful America. And we work on strategy and to help people. And we are at the point where we see so much going on, and as you have been saying the assemblies, or you've been a part of us, or you've seen our information that we put out, you understand we have a lot to deal with. We've got genocide going across the United States or across the world, and as well as trying to bring everyone to understand that you have all been trafficked. We talk about trafficking all the time, but it's really hard for us to realize that we've all have been trafficked. And so we're going to start at the beginning, and Noble, I would like for you to start at the very beginning of just a small breakdown of the labor board, how the birth certificates, and you and Chief can go back and forth. On the assembly part, last night we were discussing this a little bit when we said we are Californians. I think we would go further in that, and then we'll continue from there. If you have any questions, please raise your hand on the little button, and Jules will get with you. All right, Noble?
Yes. Greetings, everyone. I guess I will narrate this American dream. On the day that you were born,
hold on a minute.
You were turned into.
Hold on a minute, please. Everybody got their seatbelt on? Before we take off on this, I want everybody to be well seated.
We're off to see the wizard.
Okay. I apologize.
On the day that we were born, before we took our first breath, really in this reality, before the ink dried, we were sold into slavery in the form of a corporation. The name that your mother gave you is not the name that went on that certificate of live birth. They turned that into a corporation with an all capital letters name. In jurisprudence, that's a corporation. So they created an account. They kidnapped you with your signature. What we thought was a keepsake, where they put the ink on your hands and on your feet. And on this little thing that looks like an award was actually a bond that goes to 55 Water Street up in New York, the DTC. They also gave you a Social Security account number. That's where they branded you. This is the reason that you are into the system right now, being dumbed down in a construct with no powers. You only have glimpses of what is right and what is wrong only because of the control that you have experienced in your training. From the moment that you came out of the womb up until now, you've been at a disadvantage and you have been a battery in a system. If you really want to see what this system looks like, when you have some time or a smart device, you can pull up the United States debt clock. In real time, you can see what's going on and how many people are actually employed, unemployed, incarcerated, retired, has a mortgage, or any of these type of things. And this big machine, they utilize these accounts to keep you in a form of slavery or debt. They use things like religion. Yeah.
Also, the day the day that you were born, you were pronounced dead. Yeah.
Oh, we hadn't got to that part yet.
Oh,
Okay, so I was going to ask if I didn't know if you were talking about want to inform the IRS manual or not at that point or not, but I'll keep letting you go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we hadn't gotten to that part yet. Well, let's go ahead and pull the cat on out of the bag since we brought it up.
Yeah.
The definition of a child, and I study etymology, and I love to speak with intelligence when we're talking about words, because words have power, and everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Anybody ever heard that before, right?
Mm.
So what is a child? A child is a fetus, an infant, right? That comes from a placenta, the bag, the womb that comes out of the mother. And where does that come from? That is an account between two parties, mom and dad. Sperm and the egg made you, right? So you have a twin that is your placenta and you're the child. And when they put you on that birth certificate bond and gave you that social security number, you were already dead. So you're an aborted fetus of an animal, and you're under agricultural laws and husbandry laws. That's why you use terms like husband and wife and my kids. And they have the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Insurance and State Farm Insurance and Farm Bureau. And when you do a uniform commercial code lien, you have to do an agricultural lien. And it's like, you don't even know what even hit you. We're being consumed and being annihilated through commerce because of these cohesion accounts and these trusts that were created without our knowledge and full disclosure. See, mom is the trustee on the labor board, and dad is the executive creator of the account. The placenta is the money bag. Mom was under threat, duress, and coercion. She was in labor on the board, the table, giving birth to the account. So she gave up all of the information and you were sold into the stock market, the stock exchange. That's what chattel property is. It is the World Stock Exchange. I'm going to yield the floor for some questions because I know a lot of y'all never heard this before.
Anyone have any questions?
Elise has her hand up.
Yeah. So a couple months ago, I found this website from I don't know who it was. They had a YouTube video that when they said go to this certain website and you can put in your social security number and your date of birth, I think, and
that's the GMEI utility where you can go and actually see.
Have like the amount of whatever. Yeah. I don't know what it means. But there was like 40,000 next to my boyfriend's name or social. I can't remember what mine was.
And the children too. I did my, of course I did mine. My grandfather has been dead or deceased for 19 years. And he's still, according to them, they're still using his system And so you can look up how much they have invested and who's investing with your social security number. But my son, as a teenager, had not worked or anything, and it was just, it broke my heart to see. And like I said, you've all have been trafficked. And when you start really digging down that rabbit hole and you realize, and you can see it, and, you know, it's a difference between being told and these things, but once you can see it with your eyes and you start understanding the corruption, it's, you know, like I said, you feel trafficked. So, Noble, can you answer her on the more of the explanation on that one?
Yes, what she was speaking of is called the DTCC. It's the GMEI utility. You are a utility in the system. So when you put in your social security number on a search site, what's going to come up is the results, and it's going to give you a number down at the bottom left-hand corner and tell you how many companies and countries that you are being traded on. It might be Australia, it could be Ireland, and it'll show you, what is called an LEI. It'll be a blue link that'll give you the description of the bonds. It'll let you know the maturity rate, the value, and all of this type of stuff, you know, the money mechanics of the situation. And it's like, without your knowledge, you're listed as a decedent. You can actually go down to the Social Security Administration and go and make a correction in the system and ask to see the computer. They'll have you listed as a decedent, as a dead person.
Yeah, so is that what you mean by the stock market?
Yeah,
Being sold on the stock market?
you're human,
That website I just told you?
yeah, you're human capital. They're treating you like agriculture. That's what you are as a citizen.
Like they're investing in who? Like for what? I mean, I don't really understand what the website was telling me.
They're taking your estate the day that you were born, and they're playing with it on the stock market around the world. And you're not even being included in the deal that's being made.
What estate though?
So, but the way that they're
You're
doing
an
this,
estate.
Your
the way that
estate,
You are an estate.
yeah, the way that they're
You're all
doing it,
caps.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
the way
So like
that
even in the Internal Revenue Service, even in that manual in 27713.322, in that IRS manual, it even says an infant is a descendant of an estate or a grantor. It basically is calling you an infant, which he'll go more into this as we talk. But if you look at all of the documents, you'll see that it classifies you as your mother abandoned you. But for reference, if you're wanting to see how they consider you where we begin at birth, you can go to the IRS manual 21.7.13.3.22. Go ahead, Noble.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes.
You're welcome.
So with the Social Security Administration, that account. So every time you sign a document or an application and you sign your name, you just created a debt instrument. Anytime you use your social or they ask you your date of birth or your social security number, which you're never supposed to give anybody, not a bank, not law enforcement, nobody's ever supposed to ask you about your PIN number.
if I may,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure a few of us on here may have a social security that goes back at least in the 50s. In the 50s, they had a stamp on the front of the social security card that's not to be used as identification. I yield.
So with that being said, there's a lot of corporations around here that have to be held accountable. And as you progress with this knowledge, to be able to apply it to your lives, to get yourself wake up from this dream, because no matter what you think you know, you don't really know anything because of the way that what we're experiencing right now. You're being told to stay home and social distancing, and you're being stripped of your inalienable rights to travel upon the land. Who has the authority to make you stay in your house? Why did they shut down all these corporations and stuff like that? It's because you don't have any rights. You're just property, wards of the state. And you're treated as such.
Noble right there. When you just said like they sent all of us home, or people home, and I don't believe that people recognize like where it ties into 9/11 with the further back, but with the mortgage electronic registration system, why 9/11 was so important to the cause of what they were doing, because that is where they changed the banking system. But many people believe that the homes they're sitting in and the corruption, they do not understand that the homes they're sitting in they don't belong to them. Even if you're making that house payment and you
You
think that
own
belongs
nothing.
to you, you
You
own
own
nothing.
nothing.
Up until and everything, the lampshade in your home belongs to them. And I believe that people really need to understand, as Chief always says, Chief, you're always saying to us, it's a crime scene. It's a crime scene from the minute you wake up, because you're in the home that you may believe that you own, and you do not, because of the way the system has. And so when Chief is always saying to us, from the moment you wake up, it's a crime scene, whether it's your driver's license in the back pocket. But that is what the reality is, that we need people to understand how deep this goes and why we have to wake up and we have to come together and stop this.
You have to do
Yeah.
properly, if I may. Listen, it's Donald.
Hi, Donald.
Hello. I'm in Alabama. What you got to do
Welcome.
every step of the way is properly rescinded contracts and destroy their resumptions with rebuttal. You do everything you do is under duress,
Yes, under threat, duress, and coercion. Yes.
and you have to tell the agent in charge who you're speaking to, be it a property assessor, a zoning enforcer, anybody else. You have to stop their presumptions. You are who you say you are, regardless of what their opinion is, what their code enforcement says. It does not matter. What matters is what you tell them. And you always bring witnesses with you. You record everything. These people are liable.
If I may,
Yes, Chief.
reference to going back to the so-called court system, especially in the lower court. Whenever you go into those court systems, you have to understand that you're on their turf at that particular time. And whatever you tell them, a lot of them have not been educated to understand what you're talking about or understand what you're talking about. So you must begin to deal with the federal court so that it gets properly recognized. And you hold the federal clerk of the court responsible to make sure that she disseminates your information correct. Otherwise, you're still under their so-called power, especially if you've already signed a driver's license or a social security card or voting registration. You're in their jurisdiction. Your signature on those documents puts you in their jurisdiction. So you have to relieve yourself of that jurisdiction. You don't want to be a resident of that area. You want to be domiciled in that area. I yield.
We have two people with questions. They've been patiently waiting.
Sure.
Paige is first.
Okay.
I can unmute, or she's got it.
Yeah, thanks. So on the birth certificates, what year did those come about? And I guess, what did our country look like prior to the birth certificate system?
Before, go ahead.
Well, what we have is where a lot of the genocide really comes into play, and the inland piracy. It is called eugenics. And they came up with two systems, vital statistics and the Bureau, the Census Bureau, right? Where they took a culture of people, the original inhabitants, and divided it into black and white. So a whole culture of autochthon people were just decimated, and their history and their language and everything was just taken from them, because the Constitution is a contract between two parties, the original inhabitants, the American Indians, and the Europeans, the newcomers, in order to form a more perfect union. Then there's everybody else, right? So it's time for us to really enforce on what it is and not what we've actually been taught, because the law is very specific and very exact. There's even a constitutional dictionary, a glossary, if you would, that points out every syllable of that Constitution. that tells you exactly what's going on. So when it comes to that birth certificate, I mean, it's the substance of that. Although you didn't create it, the DTC created it, and this was probably around 1912, but definitely 1933 because the United States went bankrupt.
Yep.
And
Yep.
1933 is a noble. 1933 is a really big part in this, which we have the corporation when it became a corporation, and it was filed in Florida. And but a lot of people do not realize that this is a corporation as well as the bankruptcy part of it. And I do not, and when I'm working with this, Noble and Chief, what I see a lot of times is that people have not even understood that we don't even have a true Congress. And so can we explain that a little bit, Chief, on that end as well? Because when you're talking about this, what we were taught in school is obviously not the truth here. And we've been so indoctrinated. So we've got to, let's go down the rabbit hole, if I would say, but to understand the process and the concept of this is that the reason they kept us slaves is because we thought that they had control over us and that it was this system and you had to pay this.
Well, let's not forget about the birth certificate, because that's a question that she asked, and many people may not know. When they had birth a long time ago, you had midwives. The midwives would always document the time of the birth and everything in the Bible. And that was being used before the birth certificate came along. So it's been history that's been not talked about for a long time. And many people need to really wake up and understand that or overstand it, because you have to go back into history to bring it forth to what's going on in today's time. Because you're being run by a corporation, you're not being run by a so-called government. And your question to the Congress, everybody that's up on Congress Hill almost is a so-called lawyer, or they were a lawyer, and they have a bar card in their pocket. They don't have power to do what they're doing in this country. They are considered to be foreign agents at the present time. You can look under FARA Act, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They have to register in order to do business in this country because they work under the Queen's supervision.
As well as they've been found, Chief, by with the attorneys as they are domestic terrorists, and that was not too long ago found in our system. And so people need to realize that as well.
When you sign up and get your FARA card and you take the oath to the Bar Association, you give up your so-called citizenship. You're not part of the United States of America at that point. You definitely can't be part of the United States because you have to be born in a 10-mile radius of Washington, D.C. to be classified as a United States citizen. Not a United States of America citizen, United States citizen. There are two, and most people don't pay attention to its two different words. They never talk about United States of America. They just talk about United States, and they leave it dormant like that for you to figure out what they're talking about. There you go.
Okay, we have another question from Vanessa.
Okay.
Well, I want to elaborate on that last point.
Okay,
The IRS and these other agencies that were created, the Bureau and the bureaucracies under the 1933 New Deal were found to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. And that pissed off Roosevelt. So he packed the courts and they reversed all their decisions afterwards. But there's still precedent set by the Supreme Court that all these things were unconstitutional in their decisions. And you can look them all up. That's why they went offshore. That's why they moved this stuff. Yeah, they went offshore to do their human trafficking and persons in trafficking. That's all part of our history. Also, the fact is that a document written by hand is more powerful than any document written by anybody else because they cannot duplicate your writing style. Anything else is considered a forgery. The written documents are the most powerful documents you can introduce into any battle against any agency.
Correct.
That's why the Constitution was written by hand.
Did that answer your question?
Hey,
Yes, I think so. If I understand it in a nutshell, a very simplified answer is it was created as a method of tracking and population control and control.
It goes back to accountability.
Yeah,
Each,
commercial trade, slavery.
each one of us is a walking bank, believe it or not. So all these banks need to pull together and do what needs to be done right.
In order to do so, you must understand the definition of what money is and what a Federal Reserve note is. Money is, lawful money is, and can only ever be gold and silver coin. Everything else is just a promissory note or an IOU until gold or silver coin come back into circulation. And it's been like that since 1933 when they created the money cartel down in Jekyll Island, Georgia, called the Federal Reserve. Well, thanks to a pandemic, Trump has been able to go ahead and just basically bypass the Federal Reserve and go directly deal with the Department of Treasury. That's what I'm being told.
That's why he brought the gold standard back. John F. Kennedy tried to bring the gold standard back, and you see what happened to him.
So the most equivalent thing that you have to the gold standard is called a wet blue ink signature. No contract is valid until you apply that wet blue ink signature to a contract. Two parties on a mutual agreement, two witnesses and a notary. That is ironclad. There's nothing you can do about that contract.
The only
Unless
thing
it's a breach of terms.
The only thing that tops that is your thumbprint. That is your seal or your signature to any document that has any type of importance, because no two people have the same signature or autograph.
okay, we got more questions, 3 more people now. So let's go to Vanessa, please.
Hi, thank you. So I guess I'm just curious, and I'm sorry if it gets a little loud, I'm outside. Do the activities of the people, I'm trying to understand, like, do the activities of the people make a difference? Like, because we're born, we have a social security number, and then we are an account. And I understand that part, but do they want these accounts to be doing certain things? Or like, you know, some people are homeless addicts,
If I may.
and some people are accomplished, you know, having all these degrees and whatever. So do they have a vested interest in our activities?
May I?
Sure.
Okay. If you go back to 2008, when the mortgage collapsed and they were all that exposure of derivative swaps, they talked about that. You recognize those terms that I'm using?
Yeah.
Okay. What they do with you as collateral, they take your essence and they go out in the market and they bundle that stuff and they make derivatives of it. And then they swap it. And then they trade that with pension plans and insurance organizations, and they create bonds, and then they create more derivatives, and then they create securities, and then they create more bonds, and then they create more derivatives.
Right.
And it's just a big conglomerate of huge nothing. It's absolutely odious debt. It has no meaning, but they trade it on the market. The stock market goes up every day because of those bond trades.
Right.
I elaborate on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Donald. If you know about the CRIS system, when she talks about activity, well, they've got
What system?
warehouses.
I'm sorry, Donald, what system?
CRIS, Court Registry Investment System.
Okay, QSIP.
No, not QSIP, CRIS, CRIS. The Court Registry Investment System come out of Texas, and it's been adopted by all the banking systems. What they do is they take your court case and they invest it through the Treasury and into other derivatives. And it's a bonding system, it's an insurance system, it's all tied together. And it's an investment system. And that's what she's talking about, our activities. They've got warehouses full of codes, enforcements like we've never seen before. We know the 10 Commandments. We'll multiply that by 1,000,000 for crime because you can break the law within 3 seconds of stepping outside your front door. So the court systems are invested in your activities by investing in the crimes they charge you with in the court system, and it's called court registry investment system.
Okay, that goes back to what I was talking about, the estate. If you have a court case or you get a ticket or anything from the corporate world, they attach that to your estate. If you take that attachment to the IRS can replace the money that you were charged. Because in order for a crime to exist, you have to have probable cause. To have probable cause, you have to have an injured party and damage to property. And they both must exist at the same time. In reference to the young lady that was just talking about and asking the question, that's why they give you the birth certificate, the social security card, and anything else that you have in your pocket with your all cap name. If you look in your pocket or your wallet and you identify with the all cap name, your name is not spelled in first letter cap, rest of the letters lowercase. They made you a corporation to be able to deal with you as a corporation, not as a human. There are two places that all cap letters are initially recognized. One is corporation identity theft that's been going on. The second place is on a gravestone. Those are only two places that you see your name in all cap letters. Yeah, I hope I answered your question. Anyone else?
And on that, when you're talking about, sorry, hold on, just Jules, when you, so it's okay. And when you were talking about like, you know, where you can go to the IRS, and I understand that, and sometimes people don't realize all these connections, and I mean, we could go further on the banking on that with the IRS, but the IRS entered a service agreement with the U.S. Treasury Department, and I believe it's the Public Law 94564, but that is where they were doing that. And then you start looking at the assumptions of all of these things in the legislative and the country, like he was talking about the court system. When you start putting all these connections together, you really understand the IMF and the International Bank, how all these have worked and where they work with the Attorney General, and it just goes down the court system through the Interpol.
Okay, I think the next one, is that Andrew?
Can you let me look? You got it?
I believe it says iPhone, but I think that's Andrew.
Okay.
No,
Where'd he go?
the iPhone is probably me.
Who's this?
This is David Sheik.
Okay, cool.
I don't know why it's not registering my name.
I'll
Probably
put
because it's
David
the
on.
name of my phone. Okay. Thanks, guys. So much information. Oh, man.
I told you to put your seatbelt on.
Well, and I wouldn't mind talking to one of you guys privately later about some stuff. So what I heard about passing the bar is that the only way to basically pull myself out of this system is go ahead and become a lawyer?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
That's the
You
word.
become a terrorist.
If
You don't want to be yeah, go ahead.
the best way for us to be able to protect ourselves is through proper estate planning. You know, having a proper will, you know, with your expression of the living man while you're in sound mind and body, and having someone, a successor or a trust protector to have a trust to protect the interests of, you know, the executor and on behalf of the beneficiaries. No one can ever justify having the intellectual property of another. No matter what's going on through this commercial system of admiralty and maritime jurisdictions, the books must always be at zero. And you can never owe me, and I can never owe you. And we must always be in honor at all costs. And that's the name of the game that we're playing, right? So this is why they have all these different account numbers and all these debt instruments and these derivatives that they fractionalize and trade on the open market on all of us animals, this chattel property, corporate wards of the state. Well, guess what? Anytime that there's any type of fraud or lack of full disclosure, which goes against the executive order that Trump just put out, and full transparency and some other executive orders that he put out for these corporations, you know, vitiates the most solemn of contracts. So it really doesn't come down to a lot of paperwork. It really should come down to a declaratory judgment with the intent to lien, when you can pull a body out from whoever injured you or your estate. So, you know, your essence and your birth certificate and all these other numbers, although not completely your intellectual property, but the substance of that intellectual property is you. That's your essence. And your covenant with your God or your creator is unbreakable. No weapon formed against you will prosper. It's a win-win, even with federal agents. This is how you could pierce the corporate veil of corporate America or a trust, because of the intellectual property. And as long as you could justify ownership, it's a wrap. All of these houses, go ahead.
Hypothetically speaking, what if somebody tried setting up a trust like this in my name and I stopped them, but I'd already signed some paperwork on it? What do I do?
Were you properly informed, like on the paperwork? I mean, was it full?
There was no disclosure, lots of
Okay.
secrets. So,
well, when it comes down to fraud, as long as you can point out the fraud, you know, with an affidavit, it's like, you know, I didn't do this, I didn't sign this, this is not my signature. And with a notary, I mean, that has to be rebutted point for point, or it stands as truth in commerce. That's a maxim of law. So as long as you could justify that it's not you, that's not an issue.
well, I did
It's called the
sign
rescinding of signature. Anything
Oh.
that's created can be abolished. All you gotta do is rescind your signature and give them due notice.
I
Okay.
agree, because there's forgiveness in common law.
It is about forgiveness. And Noble or Chief, whichever one you would like to speak on this, is that, you know, we've been working, we see the genocide, what's going on right now, and everyone being locked up in their homes. We are saying at the state assemblies, because of the bioweapons and the genocide, we've been bringing teams together for months, since December, and we understand that the government is on steroids right now. And in this research, we're about to file a case against New York, against Governor Cuomo. And in this process, I had found ties that in the U.S. corporation side, that their Congress had said that if the state participated in the Social Security Act, that they lost jurisdiction, that they were having to answer to the federal government. Now, and then it falls under that legislative end on this. And it talks about commerce, and I've got the full rulings. But then if you talk about 1 USC 204, it shows that Congress never passed Title 42, the Social Security Act, into positive law. So how can we get around on that, you know, contradiction here, that you've got part of the federal part of the government trying to control the states, saying if you participate in these things, and we know they do, because CPS, all this funding, Title 4, Title 5, Title 6, and go down the line, a lot of that's come through that process. We see them trafficking children through CPS, through Social Security Act. So where do we go on that end of, you got one thing saying here, and then you have them saying that 1 USC 204 clearly shows that Congress never passed this, but everyone's paying into it. And it clearly said in this ruling that when the states participated, it says in this, they chose, they volunteered, they lost jurisdiction. Any comments, Chief Noble?
First thing you need to do is have some proof that it was never passed. Because if you go into a battle like that and not have any backup plan, they're going to try and destroy you. But most people here have to understand there is no government at the present time. There's a great big world of an illusion going on. Everything is being run by corporate crooks.
Okay.
So
Okay,
when,
next question
Okay, go ahead, Jules. Go ahead.
is Elise, and then after that we have Cookie.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so a quick question. So regarding us being in a state, basically, and they're trafficking us. So when we're, I don't know how else to say this, but when we're bought, what do they do? Come get us?
You want to break that up a little bit more, better explanation?
Like, so we're being sold
You
and
mean
thrown
like
around.
are you saying yourself basically?
Well, I mean, under that website, there's like thousands of dollars next to mine and my boyfriend's names,
Oh,
and
okay.
it was both
Yeah.
a different
Now you're
amount.
being a little bit more precise.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
You're being a little bit more precise because you can't leave an open question out on the floor like that.
I had to wrap my brain around the fact she was talking about the straw man.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
trying to figure out.
yeah.
Okay. It would
So
take
like,
you
yeah,
it would take
go
you
ahead.
quite a bit of time to go back and collect all those people that are using your number. But please understand that
No, but like,
number is
when
not
they're
yours.
done, when they're
That
done
social-
with me, I mean.
The social
They
security
won't
number is
be.
not yours.
Oh, okay.
It has social security written all over it. That's not your property. They're working on your illusion. You understand?
I've actually had words with people, Elise, where they are honestly in this end on using, like you saw, the stocks and everything.
Okay.
If that your name, like they can make, it's like a cloning system. Maybe a way I could explain this to you. And so if it became a bad debt, we literally found death certificates where they cremated people. They would like cremate them in Alabama, cremate them in Georgia, and make it look like that person's dead. But it's you. It's right here. But that's how the system has worked. I found actually on Chasing White Youth, the website that you went to, found part of the what we call the breeding ground in this technology world, and we found where they were basically cloning. We could chase these debts of what you were looking at, and then once they got to a certain area, if it became a bad debt, we could chase and research, and we could find a death certificate. And it was just mind, like how mind blowing finding all this. So, like I said to you a minute ago, my grandfather has been dead 19 years. They're still using him like he's alive. They're still making money.
Yeah, I've heard of this
It's to
happening.
the point of where, like, you have MetLife, like my son had on his, it was like literally Petco was making money off my son. That's what the chief was talking about, is the debt. All these people have made money off of you. And so,
That's why they call the hospital an orphanage, because it's an abandoned estate of a dead animal. It's an aborted fetus of a dead animal. You have more rights under the American Society for the Protection for Cruelty of the Animals, the ASPCA, than you do up under the 14th Amendment that was never ratified. That's sad that you have to do an agricultural lien to free yourself from the system. You have to go and be the first lien holder on yourself.
And you're going to help us do that?
Well, I
Or
can
figure out how to do that?
Yeah, I can point people in the right direction and share this public information that's everywhere. I mean, I don't know everything, but I have a few clues, at least when it comes to this illusion, on how I could never owe a foreign corporation anything.
Yeah, I would love to be in that knowledge too.
Well, at least they have an obligation to satisfy the debt. Okay, you understand that, right?
Yeah.
They have all public debts belong to the United States.
Right.
So when you contact your comptroller, he's the state guy that's dealing directly with the Treasury and the debt system. and you send them, let's say, a letter of transmittal, where you give the comptroller authority to take your straw man, social security number, your driver's license, ID, all that information, your cusset numbers, your CAFR accounts, your stock market interest that they put in there for you, and all this other stuff. And you give them all that information, and you tell them, put it towards the debt and close the account.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Noble, you want to
Consider it
drop?
paid.
Could you start dropping stuff in the law library to educate people on how to do it
Yeah,
themselves?
I'm dropping
Okay.
everything. I got
Cool.
about almost 2
Thanks so
gigs of
much.
stuff. I hope y'all are ready.
We're ready.
As well as, I want to add to this that we are meeting this weekend with a team of people, and we understand we've had so much going on. We have so many people that came to help us. And so we are actually working. We've had a meeting today. We're going to be working all weekend. We're about to start breaking to certain boards and certain groups that are going to help moving forward to help all of you. And we understand we've got things going on with the states, as well as, like you, at least you're wanting the one-on-one information. So we are in the process of setting leaders and groups, and we're going to be moving forward very fastly and quickly on this. So,
Cool.
you know, we're working really hard to help people. There's no reason for any of us to feel like we are enslaved into this system. And Noble is a big part of that. I'm so glad to have him on my roundtable for that.
Can I add one thing? Dave said something the other night about how you can actually kind of straddle the fence and still have your corporate as well as your sovereign. You want to expand on that, or is that for another call?
I'll expand on it.
Okay.
Do not slip, because if you slip, you've just injured yourself. Because they're just waiting to try and find some way to bring you back under their system. Once you have taken on your sovereign status, there's no going back and forth or riding the fence at that point. If you're going to be sovereign, you're sovereign to the land in which you were born on. But you don't want to. You don't want to go back into the corporate world. But
I think what he was. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I think what he was saying was, until you are fully educated on this process, don't do it.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's what I'm saying.
Don't do it all the way.
You can go back and forth. But anything that you have been attached to, like the Social Security number, your so-called birth certificate, you want to be able to control your signature or your autograph. Because it was assigned to you, you now can put that into a trust format and still operate with that. But you have to be able to identify you as a human on the land and tied to the land, and you control everything. You're not representing anything. You are taking control of it. You understand what I'm saying? That is the only way that you can basically be able to use and get compensated, as we're doing now, from being in the military, having a Social Security card. That's stuff that you have paid with your life, or you could have lost your life. Then they would have made money from it. You're worth more to them dead than you are alive. But if you're alive, then you need to be able to control it.
May I?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Straddling is that you control the straw man, and you put things into play that you control the straw man, not them.
Correct.
And when you do that, you can have 1 foot in the public and 1 foot in the private. That's what's going on. And that's a conversation that shouldn't be covered with these people, because they're not ready for that conversation.
No, they're not.
There's a lot of things that they got to know about prior to doing that. Like, one is change your name to an adult. And you guys don't even know what I'm talking about. You don't even, you're clueless on that. So that's a subject that's later down the road. I rest.
All right, my bad. Our next question is from Cookie.
Okay.
Welcome, Cookie.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to ask the question. Actually, I had a couple and they've been answered already, so I thank you for all the knowledge. And I'm just left with, you were talking earlier about a person not really owning their home.
Yes.
And I'm curious to see, how do you go about then actually owning it and making it yours so that they can't, well, they can't take it from you?
Now, let me give you some insight on that. First of all, you need to stop identifying yourself as a person. A person is a corporation, so that still leaves you in their jurisdiction. Second suggestion is that you take everything that you possibly have been assigned, that you think that you have paid for, out of your name and put it into a trust. There are 29 different types of trusts. One of the most powerful trusts is an irrevocable trust. Okay? So you put that, you donate it to your trust or you sell it to your trust, however you want to do it. Once you had the so-called note, either so-called paid off, or it's a lot more that we can discuss offline with this, that you can begin to take control of it. But you have to identify with not being a person, first of all.
May I?
Sure.
Yes,
Okay.
Dave.
A property, you will never own the property, whether you put it in a trust or not. It will not matter until you turn it into a lodial title.
That's the rest of it I was going to give her.
Okay,
Right.
because nothing can happen until it becomes a lodial title.
The lodial
You,
title.
you have to declare your status. You have to establish your status. Once you
Correct.
get your status established, then you can work on this stuff.
Now we're having a real conversation, because now we're talking about nationality. Now we're talking about law, and we're not talking about legal, because there's a clear distinction on which is which, you know.
What is legal is legislative law, and what is like, you know, Noble, a lot of people do not understand. I mean, we have to remember we got new people in here.
Okay,
Can
so
we talk about what is lawful and what is legal.
okay, lawful, it would be considered de jure. De jure means from this land, from this dirt we came, and to this dirt we shall return. That's common law. To the original inhabitants. Wherever there's a conflict of law or a conflict of interest, it always goes to the original inhabitants. Like I said, we are here because of constitutional issues and people's rights. Their inalienable rights are being affected by this illusion because of these cohesion contracts that people have that take them completely off the land and keep them in the water in maritime and admiralty jurisdiction, because they have EIN numbers, social security numbers, driver's licenses, and all of these other contracts that the gentleman keeps saying that you have to rescind these signatures. You definitely have to collapse these trusts, so to speak, in order to start regaining and having some status. And what he was saying about your status must always precede you, so that way that there's no confusion. Now you can give notice and hold them accountable, because you can identify yourself.
Noble,
Yes.
were you saying unalienable, correct?
Yeah, you're the rights.
Because there's a difference between inalienable and unalienable. Do you think you could explain that, or Dave or somebody?
Where your unalienable rights is, I mean, it's impossible for there to ever be a lien on you. That is a covenant.
Okay, may I?
Yes.
Okay, unalienable are rights granted by God or divine divinity or spiritual essence or whatever, you know, is your Lord. And that's one of the things we're missing in this conversation, is that point right there. Inalienable are rights that the government can take away from you. And how they do that is they get you to give your rights away, assign your rights away. How do they do that? Get you to sign a driver's license, get you to sign a voter registration, get you to sign a notification of your mail being delivered to your house. As simple as that. Those are ways to get you to give your rights away. That's what inalienable is. We have unalienable rights, and unalienable rights can be invoked anytime. Whether they tricked you into giving them away or not, the minute you realize that, you can invoke them right on the spot, and they lose immediately. I rest.
Chief?
I'm just listening. I'm waiting for another question because they just gave me
Jules,
an
do we have,
answer.
right. Jules, do we have any,
Nobody else has their hand raised. If they can't raise their hand, they could just unmute and ask the question, I guess.
I'll
any
ask another one.
questions? All right, Cookie.
Yes, I'll ask. You mentioned the law library earlier. Is that accessible to all of us? And if so, where can I find it? Because I have so much to learn, and I'm a bookworm, so I need to kind of start getting it all inside.
I'll put the email address in the chat, and just make sure you reach out to us, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much.
So Lawful America, we do have a lot of rooms available, and we have rooms that are like the law library for Lawful America, as well as we have a lot of rooms with the vaccinations and child trafficking. We have a community room, and we have as well as the fluoride, 5G. And so if you are interested in any of those rooms, please send an email to join us at lawfulamerica.com. And we would love to have you a part of this. We developed this library to help everyone. And because this is what this is about. It's about all of us coming together and using, as you can see on this call, there is mass knowledge here. And so we all are coming together to help everyone and you know, and to help humanity. We don't have to live like this. There's no reason that we see injustice every day. We as well are seeing people being enslaved in this system. And so, you know, our part as Lawful America is working to change these things. Like with the COVID-19, you see these mom and pops and their shops being shut down. Should have never happened. And so we have to start supporting each other and taking care of each other. And so this is one of our missions with Lawful America, is to pull everyone together, give them avenues, give the education. When you understand what's going on and you have the education, you're brave, you're empowered. And that is the one thing that I wanted to do with Lawful America, is to empower people so you don't have to be afraid and a slave of the system. And Dave, I saw that you had your hand up. Do you have a question? No, not you.
I
Sorry,
did.
David.
I did. You sent a link. I already sent an email out. I just want to say thank you guys. I'm excited to get involved with this. So, no, but the question was answered by the link. Yes.
Okay. What state are you from?
That's why I said yes. I'm a gypsy. I'm in every state. Who knows? This right now. Right now I'm in the mountains in Montana. Last week I was in Washington. No interest in returning to that state until they figure out what's going on with that microchip. So, yeah.
We would love to have you a part of Lawful America, and we have like a lot of rooms, and we have weekly meetings. We have a Tuesday weekly meeting where we cover different things that are going on with Tank, and he's the one that has brought all of these visions together with Lawful America as well as Speak Project. You can see a massive information as well on that site, and it's projectspeak.net and Lawful America. So we'll make sure that link is put in here.
I sent you my phone number. You obviously have my email address. I have a very pointed question, and it's regarding my name and a very large dollar amount that I would love to have some answers to.
David, I'll make sure that we, when I get that information, Jules will transfer it. And if that's okay, we'll schedule up a Zoom talk with Chief Noble and our immediate team where we can all get together with you and help you. Okay?
Okay, I'll see if I can, I'm pretty sure I have those documents. I'll see if I can pull them out to actually read them word for word too.
All right, thank you. And I'm so glad you're on the call tonight.
Thank you very much.
We have more questions, Michelle.
All right, Jules.
We have Ken is up next.
Welcome, Kim. Your question, please.
Ken Kuzman.
Ken.
Hey there. Thank y'all. It's a nice mix of voices. I think I heard Chief say we should not refer to ourselves as person. Would there be better terms to use?
Living man.
And born.
You definitely don't want to use corporate citizen.
You don't want to use words like individual or person.
Human.
Human.
Do you know what the definition? The human definition for human. People do not know that. So I'm going to test my my audience here. What do y'all think human means?
Monster.
Does that mean alien?
Yeah. It's hue is a different color. So a human is off color.
I've not heard that one, Donald. And hey, Donald, I was going to ask you before the call, but if I forget, could you please, if you want to send it privately to me on the chat, I would like to speak with you. I've not met you, I don't think, and you've given so much knowledge. I would really like to meet with you if that's okay. So if you could give me your email, I'd really appreciate it. And I really appreciate your participation in this call, and so glad you're here tonight.
Well, thank you. I'll just drop the email in the chat room for anybody who wants to send me an email.
All right, thank you. So you, as well as that, we've always said like babies, they have human rights is how we were saying it. And even in that definition with like monster, it is as well as it does not cover a child under 18, which we, as well as research, see that they also say 21. And so be really careful with language. I know it's very frustrating because they have just taken our language and they made us believe that it was one way, and it's really not. And so the other day someone said, I just want to be human. I was like, no, you don't, not really, but when you begin to understand the system and how they perverted it to make us enslaved, and you start understanding it, and what we're working on, and I believe there's many on this call that are doing this, that we're working to, there's no reason to have justice, freedom. You shouldn't have to study 15 years to figure out how do I beat this system. And so the goal of Lawful America, and I know as many of others that are on this call, that we are working to change the system. And, I have a pro se case right now with a client in the Supreme Court. And I admire her case because she had an 8th grade education, and she's went pro se all the way against Illinois in the state of Arkansas. In this process, she has, we got to the Supreme Court, and she was already on that way, and I came involved in the case right when we were getting to the Supreme Court. We made it there, and they pushed back the case. They kept telling us it has to be on a certain paper. Well, you research the paper, it's through one company in the United States that supplies that paper. Of course, other people can get it, but that's the supplier. And of course, they want the binding and all these things that they're just trying to keep you out of the court system. They sent it back and said it has to be on a certain paper. And we just went back and argued with them and said, this is the way you're doing it. These courts are not opened to the people. And they came back. Now we got extensions. They accepted the part, but they were trying to make us change. We kept coming back. It's not open to the people. If this is the way you're doing this, we're not the people, we wanted justice on her behalf. And we finally got assigned actually under Kavanaugh, and the one that works under Kavanaugh. And we just kept pushing forward, and they accepted our case. And so it will be heard. And that was kind of an eye-opener to me when she went to go file her before the deadline. She said, these court systems do not, represent us. We are just people here trying to make it. She said, you walk in these courthouses, they got marble, it's beautiful. She goes, but it doesn't represent the people. And we were talking about the community squares and how people came together, and you didn't have all this marble, and you're supposed to be, the jury. It's supposed to be judged by your peers. And that is not what we see happening right now. And so when she said that to me, that was an eye opener. That the system that we have set up is actually fraud. We've not had a court system, and since is it this late 1789 or 1800s, Noble? Which one is it? Or Dave?
The
Dave?
Judiciary Act of 1789.
Yeah, the court, we lost our judicial court correct, 1789. That's when it all fell down, and we haven't had a judicial system since.
Thank you, Dave, for letting me know that my mind is not failing me today. So we've not had a true court system in the United States since that time, but they've built these buildings, and a lot of people don't understand when they go to the courthouses and they get arrested, and they're like, I got arrested at the courthouse. I'm like, yeah, because it doesn't belong to you. You are trespassing, and they did not know that. If you look up when we were doing our MERS investigations, I cannot tell you how many courthouses we found where they were in the judges' names. And so when you start realizing the corruption here that we're dealing with, then you understand. We pay taxes. We think that courthouse represents us. And then when I can sit there and tell you, no, it's in this judge's name, it starts making you understand, wait a minute, something's not right here. And that was why the importance of the state assemblies being set up in every state that we are working very hard with. Been very proud. We have New York. Lawful America came to life with Tank, known as well as Stephen Rowell, and our core team working together at the end of December. So at the end of December, I have in this short time from December to May, we have got the U.S. corporation in default. We've written a presentment, RAL basis USA, Inc. We've written a presentment on the VAX suit, as well as we have been able to serve every state to get constitutional compliant, from the Department of Education to the Department of Health, from the governors to the legislators, and they were given their 40 days, and they're in default at this time, except Florida. Florida's Department of Health did respond, but I'll still be able to take care of them because they told me they were using vaccines and they had the right to do it by 2 statutes, and statutes are not law. And so we filed our evidence as well in the Library of Congress when we did this. We've ran the notice in the Washington, D.C. paper. We were working in that process to hold them accountable. A lot of people came to us because of the VAX presentment that we had written with a jury. And now we see all these state assemblies, and these assemblies are being set up so that you could come up with a de jure government. Now, the reason that we have done this so fastly is because we were given information that the governors have been told to become constitutional compliant. If they did not become constitutional compliant, the military would step in. You would be under military law, and then the military would have an election within 120 days. So we have an urgency here because we were actually given the deadline around the end of April. So we have bought some time here, but it takes for a common law jury, the assembly, when that de jure government steps in place, the de facto government has to step down. Now, I want to be very clear because we know that we have a lot of listeners on the outside. We are not, Lawful America is not anti-government. We are anti-corrupt government. We are not creating new laws, new procedures. What we are doing here is for educational reasons. We are educating you on the policies, and we are a meeting of minds here. And so, you know, a lot of times when you're having these kind of talks, people believe that we are anti-government. I'm absolutely not anti-government. I'm anti-corrupt government. And so I just want people to understand that the state assemblies have to be set up. So if you're not a part of the assembly, I really encourage you, if you would, please send us an email so we can get you plugged into that. We, this week, Sandra is on our call, and her and Joe are my state directors. We have been able to start the number first process to get the assembly running in California as well, or yeah, California. We have New York official, and New York is doing amazing work, but we have Colorado, Utah, Arizona, people on here that are representing those states. So I ask of you that we have an opportunity right now to change the way this is going. It does not have to be the direction that they're wanting. We do not have to be part of the narrative that they're saying. And so we are the keepers of the land, and it is our responsibility to come as one. We may not agree on everything, but this is a time where we have to set ego aside, and we work together to represent humanity. We fight for living souls. I see in these treaties, these tribes, the Iroquois Constitution goes back to where the U.S. corporation, and that's where it came from, was a lot from the Iroquois Constitution. The amazing part of the assemblies is we've always been divided. The tribes were told you would have to leave, you know, what has been rightfully bestowed to you upon your creator. If you want to have a space here in the juries, you want rights here, you got to become part of this system. It's not a lawful system. The assemblies that we are setting up with, we are bringing the tribes here. It's all documents that are lawful. We are using the treaties, the Articles of Confederation. So if it's a lawful document, it will be used in that state. And but the amazing part that I'm very proud of all this that we have worked on is for once that we've seen, we are coming together as one. And we're representing everybody, because that's the only way that the other side has won on us. They caused division. And it's time that we stop the division and we go forward. It is our responsibility right now to protect these children that have no voice and the elderly. There in the United States, there are 700 children a day taken by CPS, which is not a government agency, it is a charter. CPS is, and the pimp is what I call them, for child trafficking in the United States. The United States is the #1 consumer for child trafficking. They are responsible for over 88% of the children trafficked in our country. I tell people, these are children that are waiting for us to take these steps and be brave, so they are not raped. I've had cases, people that do not know me, I've had cases of 3-year-olds. I have a case that you can go read on projectspeak.net, where a 2-year-old had 9 rectum prolapse in 1 month. CPS kept him with the predator. The child died. But a week before his death, I said to the mother, we're almost out of time. I knew it was coming. We couldn't get anyone to step in and help. And unfortunately, he died October the 31st. And so, and that's out of Illinois. And I encourage you, if you just are not like, well, I don't know if I want to get involved, or I don't have time, I urge you to go to projectspeak.net and read the Carol Wiskowski case. If you read that case and the evidence, we'll have to do an update. And so Jules and Lane, if y'all don't mind, please remind me to do an update. Go read the evidence. And they closed that case last week with the autopsy not being complete. The child has, his jaw is, and this is what they did. We had an independent autopsy, a court order. They try to stop us from the beginning. We've recorded all of this. We've had to fight and fight to get the independent autopsy. When baby James showed up, his brain was missing, his heart was missing, his jawbone was missing. We did not know he was going to show up that way. When we called him out on it, we have that recording as well, that the Illinois coroner said that, oh, I put that back in there. He did not. Then they admitted they did. that wasn't there, back and forth. They've used this COVID-19 and said, you got to go back to court to get another order to do the brain, the heart, as well as they buried that child before that mother got to see him. Did not tell her they buried her baby. Now, there has been injustice. I mean, can you imagine that the father and them are involved, and this child died this way, and you cannot get justice, but you don't even get the respect in our country out of Illinois? How can we have this, guys, that she doesn't even get the respect to say goodbye, to know that her child has been buried? And then it took us a good 2 months to find out where they buried him. And that case, they still closed the case, and they said, you got to go get another one. The court system's closed because of the COVID-19. As well as then they came back and said, we can't get the information and we're closing the case. We're not changing any documents. Case closed. So that is where we're at right now in the past week on this case. When I see things like that, and I've had cases of children going through rituals, and it's horrific what I've seen. Those children, one day, they're going to be adults. And if we don't stop this, if we don't step up when we're older, those are going to be the children that take care of us. How do you think they're going to take care of us? We didn't stand up for them. We didn't fight for them. We cannot have that no longer in this world. We have to fight for everyone. And we are the keepers of the land. They use that in the treaties. I love that we are the keepers of the land. We're coming through, and we need to leave it better than when we came in. That is our job. And it is our responsibility to make sure the documents and everyone that has been corrupt and doing this injustice is held accountable. And when we leave, we are protecting. And our goal right now here with Lawful America is that we will be protecting at least 7 generations down, and they will continue to do the work because we will be the example to show them when all odds were against us, we rose up. We rose up and we won. We have to be the light. The darkness cannot withstand the light. It's about like tonight, how we're all coming together and using our knowledge. We cannot have fear. A lot of people say, I understand what you're saying, but I'm afraid. That's what they want. Fear is what stops people. We have to stop that. We have to come together as one. You don't have to understand and know the whole process. That is what the beauty is. We all bring gifts. As long as we're using our gifts, every piece of the puzzle fits together. And so I really, at this point, I'm really encouraging all of you that to please play a part of the assemblies. We have tons of evidence. I was showing Noble and Chief a minute ago just some of my files. And we need writers. We need people that, do understand parts of the law. Dave, Lawrence, I do know you, and so I know you do as well. And so I've actually followed you for a long time, so I do know your work, and it's an honor to have you here. And so we have all these amazing people, Donald, like I said, where we will all come together and we use our gifts and we play the part. We can stop this. I am very confident that to me, I call it cleaning house. We've already won. It's now time to clean house. And the way to clean house is we need writers. We need people willing to help with evidence. We need you to stand up and be the voice. And we've got to come together and do this. It's imperative. We have got children waiting on us. Lawrence, please. You need to unmute. Let me unmute you.
Here we are. The difference between a de jure assembly and the grand jury.
Can you repeat that? It muted out on you for 1 second, if you don't mind.
Sounded like you was asking the difference.
Is there a difference between the de jure assembly and a grand jury?
Are you talking about within our assemblies?
May I?
Can you hear Michelle?
Yeah, Dave,
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's cutting out. That's why I heard like 3 words. So Dave, did you hear him?
I think I did. I just need one little clarity. What type of grand jury are you speaking of? Are you speaking of the grand jury of the assembly or the grand jury of the courts, the de facto courts? Which grand jury are you speaking of?
Those are good questions. My understanding of the original grand jury comes through the Magna Carta, and the de jure assembly ties into the Mayflower Compact and the treaties and the Iroquois
Okay, I can
Constitution.
answer you. I can answer you. The grand jury assembly is a group of people that you bring, that everyone comes together for a common cause, that whatever that common cause is, all right, for the betterment of the community. And it's to hold de facto government to the framework or the four-corner document of the Constitution. Okay, you with me? Okay, the grand jury comes from the assembly. Okay, you need 24 plus your alternates for the grand jury, and then the grand jury sits behind closed doors and reviews whatever. But the assembly can act without the grand jury. Okay, but if they make a motion or a presentment and it isn't accepted by the de facto government, then they can take that presentment as their evidence and go into the grand jury and get a indictment. And then with the indictment, that's enforceable by law. Okay, did that help? Did I answer your question?
Yes, and our effort right now is to, I'm in Utah, is to stand up this grand jury assembly. Is that correct?
Correct. Right now, what we need to do is get the assemblies off the ground. We need to get them formed and make notice that the assemblies exist, and then go from there. So right now, it's getting the assemblies built.
So to the fine point that we're not anti-government, we're talking about a system of laws that supersedes or is the basis for our Constitution.
Okay, we're going back to our founding fathers when they created the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, okay? When they created all that, the assembly is part of that. And that's your First Amendment, third sentence that states that we, the people, have the right to form an assembly to air our grievances, okay? So we're bringing that law from 1789, 1776, and we're bringing it up to now, right now. And we're bringing it and making it present, and our unalienable rights supersedes anything the de facto government's doing. Anything that they are doing, any claim they're making, it's void because it violates our unalienable rights. Okay, so we're working in the law, as the law, under common law, which our founding fathers documents, the Constitution that was written is in common law, not in statutes and codes and all that garbage that they dump on us. I mean, just to give you one example, since March 11th, when they did the shutdown, from March 11th until present, they have written over 1,000 new laws in that short period of time. I mean, it's crazy, all right? So, yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
If I may?
If I may, this is Donald.
Go ahead, Don.
Remember, Ben Franklin wrote the newspaper called the Remonstrance. Now, the Remonstrance was back in the Netherlands. They had a corrupt court system. And in remembrance of the people that got their heads chopped off for trying to redress their grievances, because in the courts, they were not allowed to speak. They stood there and held the charges against them. The tribunal would find them guilty and then off with their heads because they didn't want anybody going against the federal government. So the American jural system was created, and that's why they had to come out with the Judiciary Act of 1789, because there was no justice in the courts, and the American people recognized it, and they put the judges all into small claims court. They could only handle something that was $20 or less. Everything else went to the American Assemblies and the grand juries. They would not call a judge in unless they had a question in law. Then he'd answer that question. Then send them back to the minor courts to handle the small claims. And that's why they came out with the Judiciary Act. And that's why you got the word magic again, because they pronounced it judicial system and they changed it to a judiciary system. I hope that helps you understand the history.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I want to address a couple things. So there's a real good understanding. You're looking at two court systems. You're looking at a legislative court system that has an assigned grand jury, which is put together by the corporate entities that are in place. So when you get called to court to stand jury duty, that's done by the corporations. The common law grand jury and the assembly is done by the people. Understand this. The assemblies and the common law grand jury do not have to go into a so-called building or court building, because the court starts on the four corners of each piece of paper that the common law grand jury and assembly discuss the problem. So it has nothing to do with being in a court building. It has to do with the paperwork and the notification, the proper notifications that are put on to put the unjust on notice. It has to start with a notification, and then you go into whatever indictments that you want to indict. So understand there are two different types of grand juries. There's a common law grand jury and there's a statutory grand jury. There's a building of court entities, which is under legislation, and a court building. The other is the assemblies and a common law grand jury that only have to put their statements on paper. The other part that I want to do is, I know there's a lot of mothers on this unit right now, fathers too. But do you understand when you sign or autograph that birth certificate that you give your child or your children away to the state in which they were born or the territory that they were born? That's very important that you understand that, because that is a contract that you now turn your children over to the state, and you are no longer the parent, you are now the guardian. So that's how they come in and do what they want to do with their children, because you've already signed a contract with them. And contract law is a worldwide entity of its own. So once you autograph or you sign a contract, hey, contract in black and white, it's good, but both of you must agree to it for it to be a legitimate contract. I yield.
Okay, Elise has a question, but go ahead,
Elise,
please.
Yes, mainly for Michelle, I think. Okay, so I came across this article in Daily Interlake. It's a paper in Kalispell, a couple 100 miles away from me. Anyway, it says legislative candidate files grievance against governor over COVID actions, and he's claiming that he's contacted the militias and huh?
The one out of Illinois?
No, it's in Montana.
Okay, Montana. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And he said he served 30 to 40 grievances he's filed, and said at least 30 to 40 businesses have put up stickers in their window in their businesses and stuff. And then he's like claiming that he has 24,000 members in Montana, and he's just, I tried to get a hold of him, but he hasn't responded yet to see what he's all about.
24,000, that's just the population of Montana, isn't it?
Shut it down. So I'm not sure if that's even true. I'm just reading what the article said, but he
Was it CNN? No, I'm kidding.
No, screw them. Yeah, he said that he put in a criminal complaint against the governor under the Title 18 USC Section 242, and that I'm just, yeah, he filed grievances with the district court and stating that the governor, did not have executive power, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just wondering if, because I'm trying to get a hold of him to see if he's like filing those with the courts, with the fake court system. He hasn't responded, so
Well,
I don't know.
I don't recommend using the court systems. I mean, you know that.
Right. Yes, I know that.
But if I do, I believe the Article 3 courts. That's, if I was going to go that route, I would only be using Article 3, and I would make sure, which we actually have been, we have this document, Trump has put in constitutional judges, and I think it's over 190 at this point in the Article 3 courts that are supposed to be constitutional compliant. Now, we did pull a document about, what, Jules, maybe 6 weeks ago, with the monitoring of where they were saying, were they really ruling constitutional or not? But we do have that link. Jules, in the law library, hold on, Jules, in the law library, could you, if not, in the law library, could we put that link where just people will be able to know to look at that judge to see where they're rating, what their ruling is? Just if you'll leave me a note on that, I'll make sure that we get that done.
Okay.
Elise, now I can tell you with my end, I would like to find this guy if you can get a hold of him.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay.
I sent him a message on Messenger.
So I can tell you the approach that I'm taking with New York, Como, is I have listed his crimes. We've done video from what he said publicly. And so the way that we're going at it as the document is to an affidavit form of cease and desist, but as well as I'm calling for a complete investigation through the FCC. He's using social media, and he's using as well as the TV, for you see him lying. I mean, the Lawful American Speak Project put out where he was other day, if you remember, where he said, "Well, we really cannot hold you in." He said that. He stated, he said if they all chose to, come out right now, there's nothing we could do. He says in that video, the government does not have, the power to federal. He said federal. He said state and local. Now, when he goes on there and he is in front of everyone telling them those crimes, I mean, he is violating 18 U.S.C. Code 1038. That's false information and hoaxes. And that is what this system has done. I mean, the COVID-19 is man-made. It is a bioweapon, as well as, I can probably tell you, you'll probably see COVID-66 before it's over with.
Yep.
And so this is a bioweapon, and they are guilty of 18 U.S.C. Code 1091. This is genocide, what they are doing. And so what I have used on what I'm writing with him on Como in the state of New York is that this is an act of terrorism. It's, we have 18 U.S.C. 241 and 242, the war crimes, to conspiracy. We have, I'm just really taking it into town, but what I've done is write the cease and desist as well as the evidence, the part that falls under the FCC part, which is the false information, the hoaxes, and 42 U.S. Code 3617, which is interference, intimidation. And so I broke it down where I'm demanding FCC to come investigate him, as well as that when he had the banner behind him that as the flag, but it's a banner. You can actually look at the flag that has the trim, and there is Noble, who has that. We can cover that in a minute. But then so in that part, when you're using certain like the court systems and you have that flag, that is following you as maritime law. They're covering that in the court system. When anything that happens like that, if you turn in the evidence, the military has to do an investigation. So with Como, what he's done with the vax and everything, because that was in the court system, the military flag was there, the American flag was there. And people that were in there that we have affidavits information, we are calling for the military as well to investigate. So FCC, military, as well as the Assistant Attorney General. And then we as well use the New York Assembly. So I'm coming and at Governor Como multiple different ways and requiring investigations. It is time that these people are going to be there, then they need to start doing their work. When, if it's two or more, no, there's crime, they don't do anything about it, they're guilty as well. We have to start holding them in their official and private capacity as well. When it becomes to fraud, there is no immunity. And a lot of people don't realize, and what everything you're seeing is fraud. There is no immunity. And in the state of Arkansas, when they tried to rule that the government was the sovereign, that they had higher court, their, you know, they call them a sovereign in here, and it's like, no, you're not. You cannot have two sovereigns. And I'm not talking about the sovereign citizen, you know, in that word that they've tried to make us think that's a horrible thing. And actually judges have talked about this, that they have done this. But it's we the people. When you talk about the Constitution and even the Bill of Rights, there cannot be two people in control. And what you have to realize, as in the Constitution, we are the masters. They didn't create us. We are the masters of these documents, and they work for us. And it is time to hold them accountable. Now, the court systems, that what my concern is, if you're not in an Article 3, it's going to be the same system. They pay someone off, and then everyone thinks, well, we lost that battle. I hear this in legislation every day. Oh, well, they wrote that one. We just lost our rights. No, if a law is written, and if it violates the Constitution, according to 60 American Jurisprudence Section 2177, from the moment it is written, it violates, if it's against the Constitution, from the moment it's written is when it's a no law, and it is wholly void.
Yeah.
Yeah, he mentions indoctrinated.
Sorry, he mentions that stuff in there, and it also says that he also served the cease and desist orders with the sheriff's office and county attorney and the health department.
Well, I would like, if you could, Elise, get with him, or send me the information you have, if you don't mind, because we already have in your state the Department of Education, Department of Health, as well as your state governor in default. And so that may be a process that we can help skip, you know, on a few of this. Right. But I'm going to tell you where my stance as a lawful American, I'm not going into their court systems. I don't contract, and I do not make a deal with terrorists. There is no offer on the table for me. There's only one thing we're doing right here, and that is free the people.
Yeah, and Article 3 was not Article 3 was not mentioned, and neither was assemblies with this, whatever this guy's doing. And he says that he has 24,000 members, and the group is called People's Rights. And then it goes on to say that he is sent, his message to the sheriff is he better keep his nose clean because I have a bigger army than he does. Like, and that's a quote.
Well, the thing that I, and no disrespect maybe to him, I believe that we can do this without, to me personally, is that I don't have to make a threat, or I'm not going to threaten someone to have a bigger army. I'm going to hold you accountable by the law, the same way that they would hold us. That we're going to use the true law here. Now I know that's him. I just want to be very clear, because we do have people within the government sometimes listening to our phone calls. We don't have to threaten anyone. And it's not an army. Now, I do know militias and everything that is under the Constitution to have those lawful rights or guarantees that we have. But for me, you know, Tank was on the New York call last night. He made a very good point. I think we all should think about this. We get in a mindset that we think that we need to get even. Well, why would we want to get even with them? They're lower than us. This is not what we want. We don't want to be even with them. So really, we want to change the mindset to rise up. If we get even, we're playing the same game. The same game is dirty. It doesn't help anyone. And so we need to come together. And the ones that are doing this, we come to them out of love, forgiveness. They have to still be held accountable. And the way you hold them accountable is by not, to me, by not threats, is holding them accountable to what has been placed there. They always say to you, ignorance of the law is no excuse. That plays the same thing for them, and they should know it better than you because they went to school, they signed the oath. And once they stepped outside the oath, it's over for them. And so the only thing that we're doing is holding them accountable. But you have to do it the right way. And the jurisdiction that no one talks about ever when it comes to you want your guarantees is that fourth branch. If I asked many of you, you would say there's 3 branches. No, there's not. Let's talk about the fourth branch of the people. The system was set up like in the tribes from the beginning. They went to the lodge, and it was them together making decisions and holding people accountable. I love the beauty of that, and it worked. I mean, there's some beautiful documents in these trees. We have to respect what happened in the past, as well as everything to heal the land, what happened with our ancestors, and on both sides. I have it on both sides, the good and the bad. It's time to forgive the sins of our fathers, is what you've heard in the past, probably. The sins of our fathers and how we pay for things. The reason I believe that the reason we have not been able to do what needs to be done in this realm is because we want to hold on to the grudges of, well, my great-great-great-grandfather did this, and my great-great-grandfather, was lynched or whatever. It is time to bring all that forward. All of the good things, all the bad, forgive. Let's bring, like David and them were saying, the tribes, those treaties, we bring them forward to now. We bring them in the present, and then we begin the system of holding that policy accountable. Those procedures, we do not have to create things. The founding fathers, there are beautiful documents that can help us. We have the answers here. We just have to be responsible, and it is our responsibility to come to the table and do this. And so for me personally, it's already there. I'm going to use a common law jury that is set up, and they are using the proper procedures, or I'm going to use the 4 corners. I'm going to start taking the charters, dealing with the charters. And my number 1 is educating and empowering the people. When people become empowered and educated together, that is what they're afraid of. What they count on is your fear and the division. And I can say that the fear is, I mean, they've tried to take me out multiple times, and they have not been able to because I have no fear. They do not have permission to touch me. I am here, and I will be here as long as my Creator needs me here to do my job. And that's where my faith is. And we all have rights that are not guaranteed to you by a piece of paper. You have rights that were guaranteed to you, that is bestowed to you upon your Creator. Create. And so we have to go back to that. We've been indoctrinated to think that we have to ask permission, or we need someone to say, you can go to Walmart without a mask. So everything that you're seeing right now, if we don't step up, what's going to happen in 30 years? Are you going to watch a grandchild being born on a Zoom call because we didn't stand up? You never get to touch them. Everything's going to be by this method. I mean, we have to come together. We have to move forward. It's an urgent matter to me. So I would like to see what he has, but there's a stance that, like we say, we have to go back. That because of the work that we did from the beginning with Lawful America, we do have them in default, and we need people to come to the table, help with the assemblies, help write the documents to move forward. And I'm going to take one more question. Jules, who did we have up?
Yeah, Lawrence started to expand on his question, I think, right before we kind of simultaneously spoke at the same time.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
Lawrence, did you have one more? Hold on, Chief.
I was just going to point out that just for the language clarity is when we, quote, accepted our citizenship, one of our duties was to do jury duty, and that trial jury or the grand jury under that system was under the corporate system. So that the language gets confused or muddled. And I think that was just a clarification on that. The other thing that you were just saying that I think is super critical to the success of our effort here, and I've had a profound success in the effort that I'm working with in our community, is we the people, and that is that we can call up, call the conduct to a higher standard, and we leave out the language of threatening. We don't need to threaten. And if it comes back to the simple language of, am I invested in being right, or am I invested in doing right? And right now we need to do what's right. And we use that higher language, which is the foundation for our laws and our Constitution. And so by calling them up or reminding them that this is the bedrock of our lawful association, is that accountability, which simply means here's the standard compared to your conduct. You reconcile that. And it isn't a matter of blame. It isn't a matter of guilt or shame. It's just simply holding them accountable to this standard, which is the base of what they claim a right to create laws for us on. That was my commentary.
It's the remedy, but you give them the option, the way to fix it, to fix this. And then if they don't, then you do other things. But you're right. I do not believe in threatening. And it is about bringing them up to a higher standard. We do not want to be what's going on. So you're correct. So thank you for that. I saw another hand. Jules, let's do about 2 more.
Right, we have Scott Thorne. Dawn, sorry, I can't see. Or Stone, I'm not sure.
I have something I would like to say, Jules.
Please.
The best way to exhibit not being a threat is just to stick to the law, and it's already been scripted. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just hold them accountable to the law, because the Constitution is very specific. It's very exact. Like I said, they have a glossary that breaks down the Constitution for term and terminology that you can compare to any etymology anywhere on the planet to make an intelligent distinction of what is being expressed. And we, the people, are empowered through the truth and just expressing that matter on every occurrence. I mean, through commercial remedy, because that's what is occurring right now. I feel that would be the most advantageous way that we can get things going. I apologize for the background noise. Yeah, so we raise our IQ with the education and knowing not the Constitution, and knowing how to free ourselves from tyranny. For one, basically, like, whatever belongs to Caesar, just give it back to him. We don't need it. We have no use for it. And then whatever is to God, give it unto God. And then whatever your creator is to you. And a lot of that stuff should start going away, because the dead can't talk to the living. And I yield the floor.
Awesome. Scott, can you unmute, or do you need me to try? I got to get to the right page. I'm on my phone.
Yes, that is Scott. Hi. Sorry, I was late. Question, sir, regarding if the de facto government refuses to step down once the de jure government or assembly take over. So how if they decide not to step down, the de facto government, how are we going to proceed forward? Can you hear me? Hello?
Well, first of all, is in numbers, as well as there's not an option on the table. I mean, I want to, I don't say that in a threatening way. I set the intentions, and so this is just, there's no option. This has to happen. And so we're going to make sure that, you know, there's things with charters, there's bonds, the jury holding them accountable, and Chief Tomahawk, who is a federal marshal, was a federal marshal. Can you explain, when the jury brings the indictment, the procedure of that, and can you kind of cover for a minute of what we're looking at?
Since the common law grand jury is not dealing with a so-called court format, you're going to go to outside alternatives. If you were a city councilman and you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing in your oath of office, we then would go after you as an individual on your personal. Not only that, but we would attach your wife to it too, because now you have damaged somebody with your authority that was given to you and you didn't follow through on your job. And the reason you go after the wife is because she receives part of the proceeds that you've been getting from being paid. So once you get the wife's attention, I think that would have you begin to change your mind if you intend to keep a wife and your children and everybody around you. Then the other way is that we go after the insurance company that has your bond. It gives you authorization to be able to be a servant in the community that you're in. All public servants are bonded to hold the position that they're in. They have somebody else that they have to report to, and they have to pay a fee to get that bond to be able to do the job that they've taken on. So there are many ways of going in and apprehending the situation at that particular time. I yield. Any questions? Do you have any questions about that?
Sorry, this is Scott. Is there any way we can get access to this recording?
To this recording?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, I missed the first half, and also
Just send an email, Scott, to join us at Lawful America. Join us at lawfulamerica.com,
okay.
and I'll make sure you get it. Are you in Telegram?
I am in Telegram, but I'm not in the Lawful America. Wait.
Okay, well, just state that in the email, and I'll make sure that you're added.
Okay.
We have a little process where we have people fill out a questionnaire. We do that to protect everyone that comes on board with us.
Okay.
Just to make sure we keep the trolls out.
Sandra was supposed to add me in the other day, but I don't know if I'm in already or not.
Okay, well, I'm sure she will. I think she's on, but I'll send her a message too.
Oh, okay.
If I may, Scott, you know what happened to Judge Scalia, do you not?
Say it again.
I said, if I may, this is Donald. You do know what happened to Judge Scalia?
No.
Okay,
Judge
What
Scalia.
part? The death, or what part?
Yeah, Judge Scalia was the one that kept to come forward and explain to the American people the fourth branch of government is the American people outside the government's jurisdiction. They have no authority to stop them from assembling and creating juries and bringing justice to redress the government's tyranny. And Judge Scalia was silenced after that. He ended up on a ranch with a pillow on his head, and they said it was natural death, but we all know better.
Yes, yeah, it's not natural. That's why you know, this Galvin nuisance is demanding to it's got shelter in home for more than a few months, and you know that's unconstitutional. We're going through this scamdemic. So I yield the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Donald, we'd like to have you come on board if you can send us an email. You have a lot of knowledge.
I'm joined in with the Lawful America. I registered.
Oh, awesome. Okay, fantastic.
All right. All right. I would like to close out for this meeting tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And we are doing Down the Rabbit Hole with me. And I invite you to that meeting. We're going to start. I post a lot of things on my Facebook and Twitter, and people tell me they think they got it, and then I post something, and then it scares them, or they want someone to understand. I'm always trying to be transparent and bring people like this. So the part I know, you may know another piece, but tomorrow I'm going to do a class on calling down the rabbit hole. And Jules, can you drop that Zoom link in here just in case, since we have some people that are not part of Lawful America yet?
Absolutely.
We
I'll do that right now.
Okay, and so I would love to have you on that call tomorrow night. And Noble, I was gonna your final comments and Chief's final comments, and then I'll end it in just a minute. So Noble, you first, please.
Despite whatever indifferences through the indoctrination and social engineering, we definitely need to come together unanimously in truth and love, peace, freedom, and justice, so that we can right the wrongs in our lives and set up everything for the ones that come along behind us. And, you know, I look forward to that day, and that we could all come together at this big round table and just enjoy the fruits of our labors. And I yield.
Thank you.
Chief.
And Chief?
First of all, you got to stay focused. If you have to think about it, it took too long. Understand that every day you open your door and the day you were born, you entered into the world of a crime scene. I yield.
Chief, I'm not used to you being short and simple like that.
I want that to stick in your mind.
I thank all of you for being here tonight. It has been amazing to hear all of you, and just the knowledge that all of you have brought to the table. I truly appreciate it, and it's a great honor to meet all of you. And you know, I started this work a long time ago, and I came to the table for veterans, for suicide and everything, which led me to the child trafficking end. And so I've been in this for a long time, for about 4 years. And as this process, you know, I would have people say, there's no way you're gonna be able to do this. And I was like, yeah, I will. And they would say, there's no way that you'd be able to, you know, pull this off. They were like saying it's one person. And I was like, well, you know, my creator will bring me my army. And every time that we need to take the next step, people like you show up every single time. And that's why I say I have great faith that we're just cleaning house at this time. And so it's been a great honor, and thank you for your time with us tonight. And please, you can visit more information about us at www.lawfulamerica.com, as well as our other website, which has got tons of information, is www.projectspeak.net, and it's Speak Project. So if you want to join us, want to know more about us, you can always reach us at joinus@lawfulamerica.com. And thank you. And if you want to join us tomorrow night, please feel free. And I'm sure if you send emails, I'm going to see you around, and you'll we'd love to have you part of the family. So thank you guys, and just remember that darkness cannot withstand the light, and love is the answer. So be part of the light. Good night, guys.
Good night and God bless.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Great call. Thank you.
It was a great
Thank
call.
you.
Thanks for being on.
I appreciate you all.
Well, Michelle, this is Trisha. I just got on here. I just got off work, but
Guys, have a good night.
We'll send you the recording. Thanks, Tricia.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.